Brutal.
This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Robert.
It goes underneath, that's right.
Thank you. My name is Robert. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you very much. What the hell? I got the patch on my eye. I'm the pirate. You don't hear me say, well. God, a bunch of ex-pirates in here. Jesus. No ex-pirates. My God, you all belong in Prison Break. My name is Robert. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank you very much for asking me to speak. I said that people just want a little AA meeting to save my life. Who's new in their first year? Can I see your hands? If you're, oh my God, no wonder you're all a bunch of pirates. Well, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm certainly glad to be sober tonight. I want to welcome you to AA and hope that you stay. I'm really glad to be sober. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving, and I was just sitting there thinking of all the things I'm grateful for, and the number one thing that I'm grateful for is that I'm sober. Now, if you would have told me that when I first got sober, in fact, it's so odd. My sponsor, when I first got sober, I was bemoaning the institution of sobriety, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. If you're new and this sucks, and you just think life sucks, and all these people are a bunch of crap heads who don't care about you, your job sucks, it's Christmas, that sucks, Thanksgiving sucks, you wake up in the morning and you're depressed and it just sucks, welcome to AA. And it's the way it was for me. And they had this stupid sign, welcome home, we love you. I just went, oh shit, I don't want to hear that crap. Welcome home, and everyone's all happy, and that's not my story. Come back tomorrow on Thanksgiving, somebody will be grateful for their sobriety, and you can hear that stuff. That is not my story. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and I was miserable, literally miserable. I hated being sober. I did not like people touching me, and I came from a group where they like to touch, and we went to a lot of meetings, and it was really stupid. It was just stupid shit. You go to a meeting and you meet people, and then the next day they say hi again, and it's like I said hi to you yesterday, and. Then you go to coffee afterwards and they'd say hi again. And it's like, what is your problem? I saw you earlier before the meeting and you said goodnight and I'm seeing you at coffee. Quit saying hello to me. And then you go to the meeting the next day and they say hi again. And it's like, dude, I don't have anything to say to you, After hi, I have nothing to say. And you go to a meeting and people are around chit-chatting, and it used to drive me crazy. And I thought, what are these people talking about? What do they have to say after hello? And I was pretty miserable for a long time in sobriety. And it wasn't until I heard a guy at the podium say one time, he said, you know what, I was around 2 years sober, and I was pretty miserable. And I heard this guy get up to the podium and he said, you know what, if you've come into AA and it feels worse now than when it was for you drinking, I want to welcome you to Alcoholics Anonymous. You're my type of an alcoholic. And he said, you know what, because that's the way it was for me. Everybody else is walking around happy. Aren't you just so happy to be sober? And you feel bad if you don't feel that way. You feel like you're doing something wrong. And then people look at you with like this expectation, well, you're sober. And I wanted to say, and it sucks, dude. I got problems. I got 52 credit cards. I own all of them. The IRS is taking my house. I'm in a lawsuit for running over a pedestrian. And I got serious problems, right? Along with emotional problems. I'm talking about serious emotional problems. You walk into a meeting and you see two people and they're talking and they see you as you walk in and then they smile and they start talking more. Now you know they're talking shit about you. And I don't know about that, but when you walk in a room and other people are talking shit about you, that upsets me. That upsets me a great deal. so that if you got a cup of coffee in your hand, I may accidentally just bump you with the coffee, you know, and just say sorry about that when it was intentional because you need to be punished. And I got a long list of people that got to be punished. And then you get to that 8th step in the book and they talk about your side of the street. And I got to tell you, I swear to God, this is exactly where I was coming with. At 9 months of sobriety, I heard in a meeting someone talk about the 6th step, and they talked about character defects. And I said, and it's crazy, but this is where I was at when I was new. I said, well, that's nice, and I can see that a lot of AA people have character defects, but I have none. What will me and Jesus do? You know, and I was just lost in AA, and it was that way for a long, long time in sobriety. So if you are feeling miserable tonight and you're not filled with that holiday gratitude and it sucks and you've got serious problems and you're not understanding how coming to a bunch of meetings and sitting around with people that are laughing and having a good time really means anything, I want to welcome you to AA. And I mean that very seriously. Because that's the way I came into this room, and it took me several years in AA of working the steps and being involved before my problems started to go away. And they were not tied to anything that I could see in AA, you know. I drank every day. I'm not really a drug addict, and I know there's a lot of drug addicts in the room here. You can just tell, a bunch of pirates, and there they are, here
What's the drug of choice?
My drug of choice is alcohol. But I did smoke pot, and I did a little bit of hash, and I did some amyl, and I did some whites, but that's not like drugs, you know, and that's social behavior, you know. But my drug of choice really was drinking. I drank every day, and I liked drinking. I drank bourbon and 7 and or vodka and lemonade during the summer, and I liked what it did to me, you know. Growing up, I come from an Irish Catholic family, and I grew up feeling very alone and very different. In fact, I insisted my parents show me the adoption papers, and my parents kept saying, you're not adopted, you're not adopted. And I had 6 brothers and sisters, and I just was not, I couldn't feel a part of. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't connect with anybody. And I'm kind of a loner as it is, you know. That's just my nature. I'm a loner. And I see other people in AA, and they got friends, and I have friends. I don't want to say I don't have friends, but I just don't, I never feel like my feelings fit the way you look like you're fitting in. And that's the way it was in my own family. And I'm a splitting image of my father, so, you know, I wasn't adopted, but I let you know that because that's how odd I felt growing up. And I felt that way since I was about 12 years old. And so when I drank, and I remember my first drink was when I was right around 12 years old, I remember this weird feeling that I had. And I got drunk at my cousin's wedding, and for the very first time in my life, that running monologue that runs, that voice in your head that's a running commentary about everything that you're doing that tells you're a piece of crap and that no one likes you and you're such a loser and that person's looking at me weird and that one's thinking weird thoughts about me. It's that voice in my head, and I don't know if you have it, but I have that voice. But I'll remember this, is when I got drunk the very first time when I was 12 years old, that voice stopped. It was completely silent for the first time in my life. And for the first time that I can remember, I was having a lot of fun chasing my cousins, and they were chasing me, and we're just being 12-year-old kids at this wedding. And I was just free for the very first time in my life that I could remember. And I just made a little mental note, wow, that's what it must feel like to be normal. Now, I don't know that that's what it's like to be normal. I don't know that normal people don't have a running dialogue in their head. But I got to tell you, until the day I came into sobriety, I had that running dialogue in my head, and it did not say nice things. My running dialogue doesn't say, wow, you're a handsome guy, you're a really nice guy, you're really a giver. You know, because I'm not a giver. I am selfish and self-centered to the core. That is when I read the big book around 10 years sober, I waited a while, don't rush into this thing. I remember at 10 years sober, I was having a very difficult time in sobriety, and I opened up the big book and I read on page 62, and it said selfishness, self-centeredness, self-pity, that we think is the root of our troubles. And I went, whoa. Bill Wilson felt like I feel, and it took me 10 years to have that awakening. But I got, oh my God, I'm not alone, because I have felt like that my whole life. I am selfish and self-seeking and self-pitying to the core. And now I got to tell you, there are other people in the world who are not that way. And they mystify me. They really do, you know. But my problem is as good as I try to be, like I like what my sponsor said. He goes, you know what, Robert, you're the best Robert you've ever been. Today, you're the best Robert you've ever been. And that's just that spiritual growth that we make here in AA. But that feeling inside of being different, of being a louse, and that running monologue in my head that used to just talk crap to me constantly, it went away when I drank. And then when I drank, I felt good. I liked myself. I liked Robbie Kilgore. For the first time in my life, I liked myself. And I liked other people. And all of a sudden, I could talk to you. And, you know, I'm not street smart. I didn't grow up on the streets. I grew up in this little Irish Catholic family in Westchester, and we went to Catholic schools. And you know what? Nobody else in my family is an alcoholic except for me. I'm the only one, you know. I don't know why me. You know, my grandfather was an alcoholic. My uncle was an alcoholic. My parents were really good people. I can't blame it on them. I really can't. My father was a plumber. He worked 14, 16 hours a day to put us all through private schools and, you know, Catholic schools, and to put clothes on us and feed us. And he was a good man. My father was a good man, and I couldn't stand him. When my father died, we were at odds with each other. I was 20 years old, and I was glad that he was dead. And yet, you know what? At 10 years of sobriety, I got a spiritual awakening from God laying in bed one night, and I got how hard my father worked to give me the life that he gave me. And it's so weird. I'll get ahead of myself. But nonetheless, my mother was a nurse, and she was a prescription drug addict. And that's the family I came from. It was pretty much Ozzie and Harriet. You know, there's no perfect family. But you know what? Something was not quite right in our family, you know. And when I drank, I felt better. I felt better. I get power. I feel confident. My personality changes. I can talk to you. I can have sex with you. I can talk to you and sex with you. And, you know, I just... That's my life, you know, when I drink. And, you know, by the time I was 24, I ended up in Alcoholics Anonymous. And, you know, I never had any dreams. You know, that's kind of weird. I never had any dreams. My only dream that I ever had growing up was I wanted to go to UCLA. That's the only dream I ever had. I thought if I could go and graduate from UCLA, that would mean I was somebody. Because I wore really thick glasses as a kid, and they didn't know I was blind until I was like in the second grade. And, you know, in the Catholic school system, they just kind of pass you along. And so I missed out on all the fundamentals of learning, like adding and reading and the alphabet and the basics, you know. So I struggled through grammar school and just horrible grades, and they used to call me retard. And you know what? After a while, you buy into that, and you believe you're stupid. You really do believe you're stupid after a while. And so I never planned on going to college, you know. And in high school, I started smoking hash every day on the baseball field because I could not do social events. And high school was a social event. And I don't know about you. Maybe you guys were prom queens and prom kings, and you boy were just rah-rah in your high school playing sports or whatever. I never went to I went to one football game in high school on a Friday night, and I became a recluse. And I didn't leave my house in high school. The only thing I did is I went to school, and I came home. I had 0 friends. I didn't go to dates. I didn't go to games. I was just a social retard, and I couldn't get out of my house. My dad got me a job at Vaughn's. Everybody loved my dad. Everybody loved my dad. My dad died. There was 800 people at his funeral. My dad, people loved him, and he just had that personality that he was the life of the party, and he was a good guy. And he went to Vaughn's, and he got his ill-equipped son a job, and I was a box boy, and they were going to fire me on day 2 because I was just inept as a box boy. But they loved my dad. They told me that finally when my dad died. And yeah. Sorry your dad is gone. Why couldn't it have been you, you know? And Yeah, I drank over that one. And but I remember when my dad died, I was kind of a sick guy. When my dad died and there was a lot of attention being dawned on him, and we were at the funeral or at the cemetery, and there was the casket, and my mother had this great idea that all the kids would walk up and put a red rose or a white rose on his casket, and she would put a red rose. You know, it's very, poetic, whatever. And that's nice, except I needed a little bit of attention, so I threw myself on top of the casket, and they whisked me off in the limousine, and they handed me a bourbon and 7. And I said, oh my God, they think I'm drinking because Dad's dead. This is perfect. This is my ticket to drink like I've always wanted to. And, at 24, I embezzled some money from my dying grandmother, and I'm not a nice guy, I just am not. And I bought this house, and I got the keys to it, and I walked in the house and turned the lock, and the tumblers turned, and I said, now I can drink like I've always wanted to. Nobody can keep an eye on my drinking. I was all of 22 years old. And in the next year and a half of drinking, it brought me to my knees. I worked every day. I put a coat and tie. I went to work every day. And I had this dual life. The presentation that I gave to you is this really very successful salesperson. It was top 20 in the United States, in the Western United States. I was very successful at what I was doing, and I was drinking every night and going to a bar and picking up people, and just I was a mess. And by the time I got into AA, I was in a lot of trouble, emotionally, mentally. I was seeing my father, who has been dead now for 4 years, and I'd be driving, I would see him driving a car, and I would be at home, and I'd see mice and rats run down the sides of the walls, which you all know as DTs. And I was very inappropriate with my friends. I would get drunk and do things that are just absolutely inappropriate. I would steal. I mean, my life was a complete shambles. And what happened to me, how I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, is my family was throwing me a 25th birthday party. It was 2 days before my 25th birthday, and they threw me this party. And I went to my sister's house. It was at 5 o'clock that night for the party, so I never left my house that day. And I said, I'm not going to drink today, I'm not going to smoke pot today, I'm not going to sex, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to be that little boy that my family wants. They want Robbie. They love me, and that's who they want. And so I'm not going to drink. And I made it till I got to that house. And I knocked on the door, and I walked into my sister's house, and my family's huge. I got a big family. I got 22 nephews and nieces, and they all start running. They grab onto your legs like a dog. Uncle Robbie, happy birthday. And I don't know about you, but that shit makes me uncomfortable, man. And because it's too much. It's too much. And my family said, happy birthday, how are you? And that put me into a tailspin. Absolute tailspin. And I began to panic, and I said, I'm doing fine, God damn it, and I went into the living room and I got a bottle of bourbon and I made myself a bourbon and 7, and I went back down and I sat in the living room with them. And I felt okay because I had a bourbon and 7 to get through. And I said, it's going to be a long evening. This is going to be a long evening. And this is my family. My family who absolutely loves me and adores me. And they said, how are you? And I thought, how do I tell them I've run over a pedestrian, I've embezzled money, and I'm sexing it up every single night with strangers, and I'm doing just crazy, bizarre shit and harmful things to people, and I'm stealing left and right. And how do I tell them I'm losing my house and the IRS? I mean, how do I tell them? How do you say, how are you? How do you answer that question, And what they really want to hear is it's your birthday and you're doing great, and you're getting ready to get married and you found the girl you've always been looking for, and none of that shit's in the horizon in my life. And I just, so they said, what are you drinking? And I said, I helped myself to some orange juice. And they said, oh, Jesus, Robert, you're drinking again. You're drinking a bourbon and 7. It's a see-through glass, for crying out loud. And my family said something that really mystified me. They said, we thought you were going to do something about your drinking. And you know what? To this day, I'm sober 28 years. I cannot recall ever talking to my family about my drinking and saying I was going to do something about my drinking. I don't know where they got that shit from. But I said to my family, I said, I just like this. It was all within 5 minutes. I am doing something about my drinking. God damn it, there's no kids here, are there? No. God damn it, I am doing something about my goddamn drinking. I've gone to AA. And they said, you did? And I said, yes. And they told me, drink, 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 get it out of your system, and God damn it, that's what I'm doing. My family just looked at me like, oh my God, it's going to be a long night with him. And they got them to stop talking about my drinking. That's what I wanted. And we got that out in the air. I'm drinking because AA told me so. Back off, and I don't remember much about the rest of that night. I know I got drunk. I know I got in the swimming pool in the backyard, and I don't do anything at this point unless I've been drinking. I don't go to the grocery store unless I've been drinking. I can't go to the grocery store. You know what I'm talking about? You go to the grocery store and you're in your line and you're in aisle 14. And you're standing there waiting for them, and all of a sudden, the people in front of you are talking shit about you. And the woman that just pulled her bag ass full of groceries behind you is looking at you, and she's talking about you. And if you really pay attention, the people in aisle 12, 13, and 9, and 11, they're all talking shit about you. And I got to tell you, there has been more than one time when I got so tired of all those people talking shit about me, I just left my groceries right there and said, I cannot deal with checking out. And I just can't do it. Not do this. These people talking shit, and you know what? I go to the grocery store one time. The guy says, "What, are you having a party?" And I said, "No, I'm just stocking up." It's like, leave me alone. And the basket was just full of booze, just full, no groceries, just full of booze. I don't drive unless I've been drinking. I have a little bourbon and 7 in between my legs, or a beer when I drink. I've had 7, 8 car accidents by the time I'm 24. Of course, none of them are my fault. The best one, though, was when the beer fell down on the floor. And what do you do when you're driving? You just drive and pick it up and wipe out a car, You wiped out a car, step on the gas, and vroom, away you go, and... Can't make amends for that shit. And you run over a pedestrian, that's hard to run away from. And so you take him to the hospital is what you do on that one. And then you sue him for running into your car. And I had car accident after car accident after car accident. And, my life is just a disaster, So what happens at this birthday party, I go into the swimming pool and I'm swimming and I had a moment of clarity. I had a moment of clarity in the pool. I was drunk. My mom, I think, sent my 2 brother-in-laws out to the pool to see that I was okay. I was the only one in the pool. I don't go outside unless I'm drunk. So they said, I just hear her saying, please go keep an eye on him so he doesn't drown. And so, because I'm the only one in the pool, and they're at the edge of the pool, and they're sitting there talking to each other, and they're drinking a beer. And I said, what in good God's name do they have to chit-chat about? What are they talking about? Because it mystifies me when people chit-chat about. And I had a moment of clarity, and I said, I really would like to feel how they feel right now without the use of drugs and alcohol. And you know what I was doing. I was comparing my insides with their outsides, because I have no idea what's going on in their lives. But I just wanted to feel that way without the use of drugs and alcohol. And I don't know much about that night, except I almost hit another pedestrian going home. And I cried out the alcoholic prayer. I think everybody in this room has cried out. It's the universal prayer I've heard from almost every alcoholic I've ever talked to. I got in my car and I didn't make any attempt to miss this pedestrian, and I cried out and I said, God help me. That was it. Just God help me before I kill myself tonight or I kill someone else. That's all I said. And you know what? That was my last drunk. That was September 7th of 1980, which is my sobriety date. And I went home and I had 3 choices. Check myself in the Camarillo Mental Institution, put a gun to my head, and I had the gun in my house, or call AA. And I said, Camarillo's going to tell me you own your own house, you have a dog, and you have a car, and you have work for Sears. What more do you want? And so I thought they won't take me. And then I thought I'll put a gun and blow my brains out. And I thought, but I've always planned for an open casket funeral so people could come by and weep for the way they treated me. And but if you shoot yourself in the head, they won't be weeping, and they won't have an open casket. So and I said, well then, damn it, I have to call AA. And that's how I got here. And I was not happy. You took away my booze. You take away my booze, you take away the only thing that ever made me feel good. because I don't like people, and being with people makes me uncomfortable because I don't know what to say. And you look at me funny, and I don't know what the right clothes are to wear. I don't know what the right kind of car to drive. You know, I am behind the times in everything, you know. And it's always been that way my whole life. I'd go to school with a peachy folder from 3 years ago and just like, you know, step it up, Robert. Come on, come on, come on. So much so that when I got sober, somebody came up to me and said, you know what, Robert, you don't have to wear polyester suits. Wool is in. And cause I had, you know, Angel Flight polyester suits, you know, and oh, who remembers those? Yeah, you do. Yeah. Take away your gay card for that one. And I was in polyester suits, and I just horrible. I just did not fit in the world, you know, and he took away my alcohol, and I didn't feel good. But you know what? I heard what a guy who got a year said. You know what? You get commitments, you go to meetings, you work the steps, you help others. And I was doing all those things, and I was miserable. I was miserable because one thing I wasn't doing was working the steps. And you can stay sober a long time in AA on step 1 and 2, or actually, I guess they call it 1 and 12, two-stepping. You know, admitting you're powerless over alcohol, your life's all screwed up, but get busy helping somebody else and never take a look at yourself. And, you know, I did do the steps to the best of my ability that I was capable of doing. And, you know, but there comes a time when that's not enough. And around 10 years of sobriety, I knew that something was wrong when I asked my coworkers what they thought of me on my 10th AA birthday. And this coworker says, me, or would you like to know what the whole office thinks? And I was thinking, you know, I was going to say, well, the whole office, of course. And they let me have it. And he said, we think you're an asshole. We wish you would quit. He says, you're a biting, sarcastic, mean, nasty person. And we really don't like working with you. And we wish you really would leave. And I went out to a tree. This is all true. This is just tell you how crazy you can get in sobriety. I went out to a tree where I work, and I laid up against this tree in this garden. I said, you know, God, why have you forsaken me? And he said, because you're an asshole. And that's the voice I heard. And I started looking for help. And I didn't rush too quickly because people tried to help me, and I didn't want it. They said, you know, why don't you do an inventory? Why don't you read the big book? And I've tried all that crap. And finally, when I was around 15 years sober, I was in deep, deep trouble. And I had a sponsor fire me because they said, you're going to get drunk. You're on your way to getting drunk. You're an ass. You're an arrogant. You're, you know, you just, I don't know what you think you're doing, but it's not AA. And but I wasn't drinking. I wasn't using drugs. I was sponsoring like 25 people. But what I wasn't doing was taking care of the steps. And so I got this guy, and I asked him to sponsor me, and he said, you betcha. Why don't you go back to the faith, your childhood faith? And I said, I'm Catholic. I ain't going back to no Catholic church. And he said, Robert, you need to enlarge your spiritual life. I said, you're fired. And I did. I fired him. And then I just took some bad action in my life, and I got myself into a real jam. And he saw me in an AA meeting one time, and he said, what have you done? What have you done now, Robert? And I told him, and he said, you know what, Robert, that's not sober behavior. And the next day he saw me again. He goes, oh, my God, what did you do today, Robert? And I told him, and he said, I didn't tell you to do that. That's not how you make an amends. And he walked away from me, and I was beside myself. So I chased him down the aisle, and I said, Armando, would you sponsor me? I'll do anything you tell me to do. And he said, he turned around and he said to me, Robert, I've never stopped sponsoring you. You just haven't noticed. And I said, please tell me whatever you want me to do, I will do it. And he turned around and he said, I want an inventory from you, Robert, the way it's written in the big book. Resentments, fear, and I want a sex inventory. I'm hearing about your sex life and you're messy. I want details. And he turned and he walked away. And I had been working on this inventory for about a year. And I had 775 resentments when I was 15 years sober, and I had written about almost every single one of them on a legal pad, both sides. And so I took that out to my sponsor's house, and he said to me, he goes, what, are you going to the gym? I said, no, it's my inventory. And he said, oh, dear God, what is in there? And I said, I have 775 resentments, and I've written about every one of them. And he said, oh, let's try just one. We're going to try just one. And I read it to him, and he said, you're going to go home and summarize. I don't have time for this. And come back in 2 weeks, and I came back 2 weeks, and I came in empty-handed. And I couldn't do what he asked me to do, and that was the change in my life. Literally changed my life that day. He said, you know what, Robert, if you're not going to take your inventory, I'm going to take it for you. And he sat down at a patio and he said, who are you mad about? And I had sunglasses on and my arms crossed, and I said, I'm not mad at anybody. He goes, all right, we'll start with your mother. And he wrote mother down on a piece of paper, and he goes, what are you so pissed off about your mother? And I said, my mother was a drug addict, you know. She was never there for me, you know. She was doped up her entire life. And he wrote it down. He said, you know, what does that affect? And I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, Robert, it's in the big book. What area? Personal relationships, sex relationships, pride, self-esteem, security, rather. And then, you know, he took me through that. And he said, now, what's your part? And I said, what do you think? What do you mean, what's my part? I said, I don't have a part in any of this. I said, what do you think I did? Put the pills in her mouth and chased it down with water? And I was really arrogant, and I was mad and angry. And he said, you know what, Robert? He said, you've made your amends for all the things you've done, because I know you've done that much in AA. I know that. And I said, yes. He said, when you went and made amends to people, he said, did you ever tell them you're an alcoholic? I said, absolutely. It says so to do that in the big book. And he said, did you want them to forgive you? And I said, yes. He said, so when it comes to your mother, just because she never made an amends to you means you don't have to forgive her? And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, Robert, your part in it is you're being judgmental and you're being unforgiving. And he said, what is the solution? And I said, she's dead. He said, how about grow up? Ooh, and that hurt. That hurt. He says, now, let's do your father. And you put my father, and he said, what are you pissed off about? I said, my father never told me he loved me. Never kissed me, never told me he loved me. I always felt like I was adopted. What does it affect? Obviously, my personal relationships, my self-esteem, my pride, my sense of security. He says, what's your part in it? I said, I have no idea. He says, how many in the family, Robert? I said, 7. Okay, so your part is you wanted to be the only child. All about Robert, selfish and self-centered and self-seeking. Can't see that there's other people's needs. Can't feel love unless he can see it his way and nobody else's way. Arrogant. I just began to bawl. I began to sob for the first time in my life. And he said, now go home and do an inventory just like I did it with you today, right out of the big book. I want a resentment inventory, a fear inventory, and a sex inventory. You be here in 2 weeks and read it to me. And you know what I did? I did exactly what he said to do, and I went to his house and I read it, and I had the spiritual awakening they talk about in the big book. I had that freedom I have never felt before. I literally felt the weight come off my shoulders. I had a natural knowing. I had an instinctual knowing of what to do with every single one of my resentments. I had an instinctual knowing of who I needed to make amends to and how to make those amends. And we sat there, I made the list, I went out and I did what I believe today is the Father's business and cleaned up the wreckage of my present and my life. And you know what? From that point on, my life changed unbelievably. Unbelievably. You know, I used to be depressed. Between 10 and 15 years of sobriety, I was so severely depressed I had planned my own suicide. I was going to put the car in the garage and kill myself. And the only thing that stopped me that day was a guy in AA who I got sober with came by my house to pick up a piece of furniture to give to a newcomer. And he interrupted my plans to kill myself that day. But I couldn't tell him what I was thinking and what I was planning on doing, but it interrupted it. And that's how I was feeling between 10 and 15. Really, really, really seriously going to kill myself. And I also wanted to go on drugs. I wanted to go on drugs at 10 and 15, and my sponsor's a very smart guy, and I said, you know what, I think I'm severely depressed, I need drugs. And he said, why don't you try working the steps? Why don't you try working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous? And I got to tell you, I did that. That depression lifted, and save for maybe 1 or 2 days in the last 13 years, I have not been depressed. This year was a really difficult year for me. You know, they were looking for brain tumors for about 4 months. I had like all these MRIs because I had all these problems with my body. And they didn't know what it was. I lost the use of my shoulder and my knee, and I woke up one day and my vision was blurred completely in my right eye, and just I had all these neurological problems, and I was having these tests, and every doctor I went to said, it looks like a brain tumor, Robert. And I had one moment when I said, you know, dear God, why have you forsaken me? Never once did I say, God, cure me. Because the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says we don't pray for that. We pray for God's will. So I just simply said, you know, God, give me the courage to carry out your will. Give me the courage to carry out your will. And, you know, I got through that period, everything's fine. I don't have a brain tumor, and I've had surgery on one eye, and now I've had surgery on the other eye, and I've got my vision back to where it's supposed to be. They still don't know what's caused this nerve problem on the right side of my body, but I've gone to the best surgeons, and they all say, just learn to live with it. And I say, I know how to learn. I can learn to live with unresolved problems because I have that experience here in AA. I was flying recently. I was speaking at a convention in Europe, and I was on this plane, and this is just not me. This is just, if you know me, my friends used to say, Robert, you ever watch Saturday Night Live? And I say, yeah. And they said, do you know this character called Debbie Downer? And I said, no. And they said, well, that's you. Wah, wah. They said, you have such a downer personality about everything. So here I am flying on this plane, and it's late at night. We're flying in business class. A friend of mine gave me a ticket, which I was really grateful to go on. And I get this 89-year-old woman next to me, and I just think, how great is that, When you're 89 years old, you're so close to death, you're just full of gratitude. But that was not my experience. That was not my experience. I got on this plane with a woman who was as cantankerous and miserable as I've ever seen in my life. She finally said to me, she turned around, are you always this cheery? Are you always just as happy about it, no matter what happens? Happy, happy, happy. Are you? And I said, you know what? What are we going to do? The plane was being diverted to New York and all kinds of craps and all kind of delays. And I'm just saying, I'm so grateful to God. I'm so grateful to God. I'm just so grateful to God. I'm grateful that I have a brain tumor. I'm grateful that I'm sober. I'm grateful that I'm going to Europe. I'm grateful this. I'm grateful that. I'm feeling this little gratitude about my life. And I'm just saying, isn't this wonderful? Isn't this so fabulous to fly in business? Now they've changed the seats. I hate it. I mean, she stood up, and then when they said, we're diverting to New York, she jumps out of her seat. I'm not going to New York. I've had it with this shit. And I just thought, oh my God, what? That used to be me, and wow, and she was just a bitter, old, cranky woman, and I thought, that could be me. That really could be me, And I got to tell you, I got to stop. It's a couple minutes too, and we're out of time. It's Thanksgiving, and you know what? I got to tell you, it's not just a podium line. I am grateful. I am thankful to God for what I have in my life. I'm not depressed. I'm not malcontent. I'm not a sad person. I'm not miserable. I'm not going, oh, woe is me. I mean, God, wake up, look in the world and see how fantastic we have it. That I got it. I'm not going to preach to you, but that I'm sober today. I'm in my right mind. I have money in my bank account. I have a job. I have nice clothes. I drive a nice car. The rent is paid. You know what? I woke up this morning, no hot water, not a problem. You handle one. It's not like, oh, yeah, they're doing it to me again. No, it's just like, you know what? So be it. That's the next indicated step. I have much to be grateful for. The biggest thing I have to be grateful for is I'm in my right mind. I'm right size, and I'm sober. And I have a great life today. I don't have everything that I want. I don't have it all lined up perfectly. But you know what I have, what AA's given me? It's the one thing outside of sobriety you can't buy. No amount of money you can purchase it. But it is the one thing, and it's the only thing that matters at all. And it's really what Thanksgiving's all about. It's what sobriety's all about. And it certainly is what Alcoholics Anonymous is about for me. And that is, AA has given me hope. It has given me hope. And hope has kept me alive. That maybe I'm feeling crappy today, but tomorrow's another day. 10 minutes from now, there's hope that things are going to get better. So if you are new and you are feeling miserable, I sincerely welcome you to AA, because we have hope here. And tomorrow things will be better. And that has been my experience. I wish you all a day of thanks tomorrow. Thank you.